Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're exploring a framework to master an incredibly rare, deeply vital skill: the art of handling broken promises, violated expectations, and flat-out bad behavior. I mean, think about the last time someone completely dropped the ball on you. Maybe a coworker missed a critical deadline, or an employee spoke to you disrespectfully, or perhaps a loved one broke a really serious promise. How did you react? Did you speak up, or did you just suffer in silence? Well, we're going to break down the exact mechanics of what happens in those high-stakes moments, and more importantly, how to navigate them so you never have to walk away from another conflict again. Okay, let's dive into this. Renowned management expert Tom Peters makes a massive claim about this framework. He actually compares it to James Watson and Francis Crick's Nobel Prize-winning discovery of the double helix structure of DNA. I mean, wow, that is not a comparison you take lightly. Peters argues that war and peace, Olympian success and abject failure, the survival of a 20-person restaurant or a massive Fortune 50 corporation, all of these profoundly depend on functioning human relationships. And the essential element, the actual organizational DNA that decides whether a team thrives or dies, is exactly how it handles crucial confrontations. Section 1. The Anatomy of Accountability. To see what this looks like when the pressure is truly on, we have to look at our source material, Crucial Confrontations. What's so incredible about this book is its sheer pedigree. This methodology was forged through literally over 10,000 hours of observational research. The author spent years identifying and studying the absolute best communicators out there, individuals who had been flagged by their own peers as absolute masters at engaging in difficult, absolutely necessary confrontations where everyone wins and relationships actually get stronger. We are looking at the gold standard for driving accountability here. So, to truly understand what's at stake, let's start with a story. Picture this. Two Stanford researchers pull up to a plywood mill in the foothills of northwestern Washington. They're there to study how leaders handle missed commitments. But as they arrive for their very first day, the harsh glare of rotating warning lights sets a really ominous tone. There's an ambulance parked right out front at the main gate. When they walk into the plant manager's office, one of the researchers nervously asks, "Hey, what's with the ambulance?"
Section 2. The cost of violence.
Well, that ambulance represents our first major failure in accountability, what we're going to call violence. The plant manager basically turns white and explains to these experts he just hired that the ambulance is currently carrying an employee who was just beaten up by a supervisor. The night shift supervisor, a guy named Leo, who the manager insists is usually a prince of a guy, had gotten into a heated argument with a machine operator. The operator had repeatedly failed to follow a really routine quality process. Leo pointed it out, one word led to another, and Leo quite literally punched the employee, sending him to the hospital for stitches. Crazy, right? Put yourself in Leo's shoes for just a second. Have you ever been so unbelievably frustrated by someone repeatedly breaking a rule or ignoring a standard that you felt like you were just gonna explode? When expectations are violated, our adrenaline spikes. Now, most of us won't throw a physical punch, but we might throw a verbal one. We might yell, use heavy sarcasm, send a blistering email, or even publicly humiliate someone. This explosive reaction, this defaulting to verbal or physical violence, is a catastrophic failure of the organizational DNA we're talking about today. Section 3. The cost of silence. Now let's pivot to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. This is a failure that's entirely quiet, but honestly just as deadly. Meet Sarah. She's a highly experienced head nurse at Pine Valley Medical Center. Sarah is standing in a hospital room, absolutely frozen, listening to two physicians discuss the treatment of an elderly patient. Sarah's years of expertise tell her two things for sure. First, this patient likely needs an immediate large dose of antibiotics to survive. Second, even though the doctors are prescribing a treatment without those antibiotics, Sarah is going to keep her mouth entirely shut. Why? Because years earlier, fresh out of college, she had cheerfully disagreed with 3 doctors. They stopped dead in their tracks and stared at her as if she were a cockroach on a wedding cake. That single terrifying moment burned a rule into her psyche: never ever disagree with a physician. So the absolutely crucial point here is the terrifying stakes Sarah is now facing. She isn't 100% certain the doctors are wrong, but she's pretty certain. And if she is right, the patient might literally die. But her expectations of the doctor's competence aren't being met, and because she lacks the skill to safely confront them, she resorts to silence. She asks herself, essentially, do I speak up and risk my job, or do I stay quiet and risk this patient's life? She chooses silence. And just like Leo's punch, Sarah's silence is a complete breakdown of accountability. Section 4. Conversations versus confrontations. Both Leo's explosion and Sarah's silence are catastrophic failures. One acts out, the other holds it in, growing a tumor instead of expressing a concern, as Woody Allen might joke. And this brings us to a really core technical distinction for this explainer. You might be familiar with the concept of a crucial conversation, but a crucial confrontation is distinctly different. The hallmark of a crucial conversation is disagreement. People have different opinions, they don't know how to work through them, and poor decisions are made. Crucial confrontations, on the other hand, are about disappointment. They're entirely made up of failed promises, missed expectations, and bad behavior. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly where the framework clicks into place. A crucial confrontation is the very foundation of accountability. It always begins with a single loaded question in your mind. Why didn't you do what you were supposed to do? But it doesn't end in a hospital visit or quiet resentment. A true crucial confrontation only ends when a solution is reached and both parties are actually motivated and able to comply. It's that prickly, complicated, and often frightening performance discussion that keeps you up at night. Section 5. Mastering the crucial confrontation. So, you might be wondering, how universal is this really? Well, these tools are built for everyday high stakes. From the source text, we see exact scenarios you probably face on a regular basis. What do you do when an employee speaks to you in an insulting tone that totally crosses the line? What do you say to a coworker who is ragingly incompetent and dragging the whole team down? Or, on the home front, how do you handle it when your teenager walks through the door sporting colorful new body art, perhaps right before going to the senior prom with a boy you suspect is Satan's grandnephew? These are the moments that test us. Whether you're in the corporate boardroom or your own living room, knowing how to step up to these tough, even hostile problems and deal with them superbly is the hallmark of the world's best leaders and parents. Which brings us to the ultimate question you have to ask yourself right now. When expectations are violated in your life, when someone breaks a promise or behaves badly, what is your default setting? Are you a Sarah, retreating into dangerous silence to keep the peace even when disaster looms? Or are you a Leo, prone to explosive violence, verbal or otherwise, that completely destroys trust and relationships? Accountability isn't about choosing between candor and kindness. It's about learning the skills to use both. So the next time someone lets you down, how will you choose to confront them?